Hello, welcome to the first installment of the TAPES
Tapes.
podcast. I'm your host, Jayden Calderon, with your other host,
Anthony Santos,
and we will be discussing Unit 1.
the living world ecosystems.
Yes. Now, Anthony, can you give them a little bit of insight on what they will be learning in this unit?
So, ecosystems, if you've taken earth science before, ecosystems are like basically what makes up the environment.
Yes.
This
And,
oh,
continue.
this unit accounts for 6 to 8% of the total exam AP exam weighting. What do you think that means, Jayden?
I think about 6 to 8 questions might be about this
Questions?
topic.
6 to 8% of the questions might be about it.
7 two, three,
Cut your
four.
mic, cut your mic. So, Jaden, do you remember anything from this topic
Well,
before we go in?
I do know that an ecosystem is a community of living organisms in a conjunction with the non living components of the environment interacting as a system. But
Okay,
maybe you could fill me in on more.
on more what about the ecosystems?
Yes.
So, an ecosystem has biotic, meaning resulting from living things, and abiotic factors. Abiotic stands for physical rather than biological. Uh, Biotic factors in the ecosystem include herbivores, omnivores, carnivores, and soil. And abiotic factors in an ecosystem consist of sunlight, temperature, precipitation, pH, and soil.
Yes. Now, Anthony, can you tell me why abiotic for soil is abiotic and biotic?
So, soil is both considered a biotic and abiotic factor in an
Mhm.
ecosystem because soil is made out of biotic living organism, living material, or
Yeah.
decomposed material, and abiotic material like sand, silt, and clay, which you will learn in a later topic.
Now, what we're going to go into is the predator prey relationships. We're going to quickly gloss over these ones. So, you have the symbiotic relationships, which is mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism.
Uh huh.
Now,
What does
well,
symbiotic
I'm
stand
glad you
for?
asked, baby girl. Symbiosis is a close long term interaction between two species in an ecosystem. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for the three different subcategories of symbiosis, there's commensalism, where only one species receives benefits and the others are unaffected by the interaction.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me an
Then there's
example of commensalism?
oh well, owls and trees. The owls benefit from having a place to build their nest, while the trees are unharmed and not
Mm-hmm.
impacted by the bird's presence.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into parasitism. Parasitism is one organism lives on or inside the other. The other organism is a host. Parasites receive a benefit from the host, but the host is harmed from the interaction. So,
Okay, so since Jaden missed one, I'll I'll let you more. I'll let you know more on it. Mutualism is when both species receive a benefit that results in an increased chance of survival and reproduction.
yes. Um, Predator prey relationships, if we're going to continue, there's
Mm-hmm.
also competition. Individuals from different inter or same intra-species struggle to obtain the same limiting resource.
Tell me, Jaden, what is a limiting resource?
It's a resource that's limited. Well, now that I said that dumb response, I'll give you the real response. Any resource, biotic or abiotic, that constrains a population size or stops pop size from growing. Now, an example of competition is tigers fighting in territorial dispute.
So, Jaden, what's the difference between intra and interspecific?
Well, Anthony, um, since you know how the English language is, they just change one letter. Intra-specific competition
Okay,
is
immigrant.
the same species,
Mm-hmm.
while inter-specific competition is different
Different species.
species.
Okay. Um, Another topic that is important to this unit is terrestrial biomes. In ecology, there are levels of an ecological system, going from organisms, population, community, ecosystem, and biome. Biome being the largest and organism being the smallest. Temperature, precipitation, and latitude can all affect these biomes. And since
Um,
latitudes affect biomes, hot, humid regions have higher primary productivity, thus having a higher biodiversity, while colder, drier regions have lower primary productivity, thus lessening biodiversity. So there are 10 different types of terrestrial biomes: tundras, deserts, grasslands, taiga, which is boreal forests, shrublands, temperate seasonal forests, temperate rainforests, tropical seasonal forests, and savannas.
and there are also different biomes for aquatic,
Aquatic.
and these aquatic biomes are
Wait,
classified in
Jayden?
either fresh
Uh huh.
or marine.
Hmm.
And
What's
now,
fresh and marine? What's the difference?
so freshwater biomes
Mm-hmm.
are streams, ponds, lakes, rivers, wetlands, marshes, swamps, and bogs. These
So,
are usually smaller bodies of water.
mhm.
Then
So can you give me
marine,
an example of a lake?
there's Lake Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
there's the Great Lakes,
Uh huh.
there's other lakes out there,
Or Lake
Lake Tahoe,
Superior, like that's on the
Lake
slides.
Tahoe. And then marine biomes, they're usually larger ones. So think Atlantic and
Mm-hmm.
Pacific Ocean. So you have the intertidal, the estuaries, coral reefs, marshes, open ocean, and swamps.
Freshwater stratification is basically like the deeper you go into a body of water, the less the less nutrients aquatic life will receive. So in the littoral zone, which is closest to the shoreline, you're gonna have more plant life because it's close to the shoreline, and you get a lot of sunlight. But once you go down into like the profundo zones, that's when photosynthesis is unable to, like, the sun's rays are unable to penetrate the water. So organisms down there, mostly like algae, think of like mostly organisms that need that need to do photosynthesis, they're unable to in the profundo zone.
Yes, thank you.
Four important topics that you'll learn on this unit are the different cycles. The four cycles
Just
are
name them.
ooh, the four cycles are the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, and the hydrologic cycle, also known as the water cycle. The carbon cycle is the movement of atoms and molecules containing the element carbon between sources and sinks. A sink is also known as a reservoir, and one important thing you should know about reservoirs and the cycles is that there are short-term and long-term reservoirs of each element. A short-term reservoir or sink of carbon would be known as the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is always releasing and taking in carbon through photosynthesis and cellular respiration, which takes carbon out of the atmosphere, and decomposition would bring carbon into the atmosphere because of the breakdown of deceased like material.
Yes, why, yes.
The nitrogen cycle is the movement of atom and molecules containing the element
Nitrogen.
between sources and sinks, and the largest nitrogen reservoir is the atmosphere. Now, what you need to learn about nitrogen is that it goes through different stages. The first stage is nitrogen fixation, where nitrogen gas is converted chemically with other elements to form compounds like ammonia, which will go into ammonification, which is when nitrogen is converted to ammonia by soil or decomposition of living matter. And then we have nitrification, where ammonia is converted into nitrates and then nitrites. Oh wait, nitrites and nitrates. And assimilation is when nitrates are uptaken by plants, which is then uptaken by animals through the trophic structure. You'll learn about the trophic structure in later units, but that's all you need to know so far. And denitrification is when nitrates are converted back into nitrogen gas by soil bacteria.
Yes.
The phosphorus cycle is the movement of atoms and molecules containing the element phosphorus between sources and sinks. And the phosphorus, one important thing you need to know is that the phosphorus cycle is the only cycle that does not take place in the atmosphere. The major reservoir of phosphorus is sediments.
Yes.
Going back on phosphorus, through uplifting and weathering, phosphorus is released in soil and dissolved in bodies of water.
The hydrological cycle or the water cycle is the movement of water in the various solid, liquid, and gaseous phases. Phrases?
Phases. That's good.
Between sources and sinks. Oceans are the primary reservoir of water on Earth, if you didn't know that.
I didn't.
And the sun causes
Yeah, I got an ocean right
evaporation.
here.
The sun causes
Right.
evaporation, evapotranspiration, and sublimation of gaseous water.
Which is water in the gaseous state.
Yes. Precipitation, rain, dew, fog, drip bring water from the atmosphere back into the earth
In
in
a
a
liquid
liquid state.
state. So it's basically the three what is it called? The three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. Okay.
Um,
And to like end off these four topics, all four cycles are what we call biogeochemical, meaning that chemical elements are transferred from living organisms into the environment. Another important lesson that we'll learn. I wish you could see how bad Jaden is looking at me right now. I'm like scared.
don't be scared.
Jaden, why are you looking at me like that?
Continue.
Um, um, another lesson that we will learn in this topic is about primary productivity. Now, in photosynthesis, gaseous carbon dioxide and water combine to form glucose.
Yes.
Do you know what glucose is, Jaden?
Energy, sugar.
Okay, yes, which is the primary product. And there are two types of primary productivity. There is gross primary productivity, which is the total rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis, and net primary productivity, which is the remainder of the gross after use of producers during cellular respiration.
Hmm. Continue.
Why are you looking at me like that? Jaden, and you're scaring me.
Why am I scaring you?
You're
Continue.
scaring me. Next, we'll be going through trophic levels. Now, what we need to know is that an autotroph makes its own food, and autotrophs are mostly plants or organisms that can like photosynthesize, and then heterotrophs, which depend on other organisms for energy, which are like mammals. In a terrestrial trophic levels, we would have plants, algae, and bacteria, which are photosynthesizers, and then we would have herbivores, carnivores, and then an apex predator or the top predator, and then we have scavengers. Scavengers, like decomposers and what the hell, detritivores, which consume all four trophic levels. Do you get that, Jaden?
Hmm.
In an aquatic trophic level, we would have kelp being a photosynthesizer, with the
I want to
sea
know what he's
urchin
reading this.
eating the kelp, and then we have a sea otter eating the sea urchin, and then the apex predator being a sea lion, which eats the sea otter, and then we have crabs, which are a scavenger, which eat all four trophic levels. Now, and another important topic is to know about the 10% rule. The 10% rule is the approximation that the transfer of energy from one trophic level to the next is only passed on by 10%, with 90% of the energy being lost to heat and used for growth and reproduction of an organism. Which is why, if you can see the diagram that I have here, kelp
Which they can't.
and
Which they can't.
they can't. Yeah, I know, but like as I'm just saying, like that's why, like let's say a sea, like for the aquatic one that I use, a sea lion. Why are you looking at me like that, Jaden? Like you're like I'm being judged silently. Like a sea lion needs to eat a lot more,
Uh huh.
because it's like an apex predator. It needs a lot more energy because the 10% rule
Yes.
um is basically saying that, oh, like most of its energy is lost, so it needs to eat more. Um,
Then
the
what's the
last
lesson after
and
this?
okay, And now we're on the last topic of this unit, which are food chains / food webs.
And I will be
Jayden, would
discussing
you like
this.
to tell me more
Well,
about this?
food chains or food webs are, you know what a food chain and a food web is, girl. You know, don't be
Yeah.
silly now. But I'll give you some quick basic info for this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, habitat loss, invasive species, pollution, human population, and overharvesting can all cause stress on food chains, which are more susceptible to negative changes in the environment and species.
Wait,
Food,
so Jayden,
yes,
what's it like? Is a food web more effective than than a food chain?
yes, food webs are more resilient to environmental stresses.
Ignore that. Ignore that.
Human impact: mercury, lead, DDT, invasive species, overfishing. Those are all because of humans.
By the
Humans,
way, DDTs are pesticides.
yes. And then the reason why people or humans, obviously, are the result of invasive species is because when we go and we transport goods,
Goods
sometimes
and services.
species are can stow away like insects. They can stow away on these boats and can be brought on to other areas.
Let me give a real example. Zebra mussels. Zebra mussels are not they're not originated from North America, but they came through North America through like boats. Like when people would like dock their boats, there will be zebra mussels underneath the boats, and these people really didn't know that they were there,
Yeah.
which is why
Yes.
they populated so quickly
Yes.
because of them being an invasive species, which you'll learn about more later, which is
Yes.
about
Now we're gonna get into our next segment of how did you feel about this lesson,
this unit.
about this unit?
Um, what did I feel
What
about
did you
this unit?
struggle with? What was your strong points? What did you do good in?
I feel like this unit is really easy. Like it's mostly just earth science. Like if
Yes,
you took
and
an earth science class, you'll get most of it.
yes. I feel like the thing I struggled with a little bit was because when you're doing primary productivity, there's a lot of calculations into calculating
Oh
primary
yeah, there are
productivity.
calculations.
So I struggled with that a little bit because I'm not the best at math.
Mm-hmm. We
So
could
I feel
tell.
like that was a struggle. But everything else, other than that, I feel like it was all good enough
It
and
was all
easy
basic
and
information,
simple.
really. Like if you took a science class, you should know about most of this.
Yes. Majority of it would be, what would you say
Whilst
majority?
agreeing, like he's gonna get a
Majority of
two.
it is
Like we know he's gonna get a two.
exactly our background man. Well, is gonna get a 2. So that's all we have for this
That's all we have for
first
this unit,
installment.
kids.
Let's give a round of applause for us. Anyways,
And we'll see
goodbye.
you on the next episode. Bye.
Ah!